What's up, folks? It's 4 Eyes Malone coming today with the Spider-Man Miles Morales review, impression, whatever I'm gonna call it. I kept going back and forth about how I wanted to talk about this game. I did play it when it came out on release day. I beat it within a few days after that. So, as many people do know about Miles Morales, it is a shorter title compared to the first the first Spider-Man game that came out in 2018 with Peter Parker. Miles Morales is a shorter game, about 8 to 10 hours, depending on how you play with the main story. It took me about 9 hours, the game clock said, which going between me sitting on it, pause menu, blah, blah, blah. So the game is shorter, but as many people have asked me and I've told them, that does not mean it is a bad game or not worth your time. Now, Miles Morales is a $50 title by itself. If you get the remastered version of the first Spider-Man game included, it is $70 on PS5. So, going off just starting out, I will say it is worth the money presented, given, whatever. You do have to, you know, go into how you feel about open world games. If you feel you want to go and do another collectathon of picking up this item here, collecting this cachet, going to this icon on the map, clearing the board here, clearing it there. So it is that same kind of flow between an open world game, same kind of pattern as the first Spider-Man, where you unlock different things as you progress through the story. You see different characters, you hear the chitter chatter of the NPCs around the New York City streets. You're going to be, going and stopping crimes that may or may not be repetitive depending on how you go about them. In this game, I think that Miles Morales took a lot of, Insomniac, I should say, took a lot of the things from the first Spider-Man game and kind of streamlined, kind of eased it out, saw fan reaction, went back to the drawing board. And some of the things I thought in the first Spider-Man that were a little tedious, like doing the crimes where if you want to get the platinum trophy, you had to do 5 of each kind of crime save, crime stop. And this one, you'd have the same, but now in this game, you have an app that Genki gives you where you go and you have certain side missions that you have to go through off the app. Or there's the different crimes where you can pop up and be like, oh, there's a guy committing a crime over here. There's the thugs over here, robbing the store. So you have to do that. You have your modifiers in each, or goals in each of the crimes that you have to get. Like, say you have to hit 5 enemies with a swing kick or do 3 Venom attacks. So when it comes to things like that, they kind of switched it up on how you go about the game, how you go about the gameplay, moving around. Now, when you think about Spider-Man, the one thing people really loved across the board was the web swinging, and that has not changed at all. Spider-Man Miles Morales, he does, I believe, have some different tricks from what I've done in the game. So you do swing around on same pace, but this time you have, with the soundtrack, you have more bass, hip hop style. So going around town as Miles Morales, especially for somebody like me, I really got into the music. I really got into the vibe of Miles Morales, what Insomniac did with this game. And it's based during the winter time, so it's not in like the bright summer like the first Spider-Man was. So I was a little disappointed in that, just because I'm not too keen on wintertime situations as much, where you're looking at the snow and looking at like the kind of gray areas and things like that. So that to me was less appealing. But in terms of just pure combat, you get with Spider-Man Miles Morales, you get his Venom attacks, which come into the game. Him learning about how he uses his Venom at like electric looking attacks, which is kind of cliche for black characters and superheroes. I'm sorry, but when you look at you look at his camouflage ability, which obviously you're gonna be using camouflage for stealth in your video, in combat scenarios. The stealth I didn't use that much. It kind of depended on if the game told me like, oh, you should get 3 web slings, trap this person on the wall, blah blah blah. I would do that, but to me, I kind of like going about quick action, hitting with the combinations. You get finishers again in this game. You get different combos. You have your skill tree, which is less moves than the first Spider-Man game, mainly because I believe the time of this game is less than you're going to be doing. So, instead of having as many as Peter had, Miles has less abilities, and you can only unlock some, though, later if you do New Game Plus. But overall, though, if you want to look at them going into combat in this one, web swing, everything is very fluid. Everything feels good. you really get a sense of impact when you're fighting, and as you go through the game, you get to harder enemies. You have to be a little more strategic depending on who you're fighting. I would say as a pure, going through a game that does have a story over, in an open world scenario. I think this story that deals with Miles, his family, and his friends, as Peter, as Peter Parker deals with as well. But this one, it definitely hit home a little more for me in terms of the emotional value, the sentimental, feeling like I felt like Miles, it really showed him getting into his own and him showing who he is, which if you watch Spider-Verse or if you read the comic books, and you see that, but I feel like Insomniac definitely brought their own flavor into that. His character, his friends in the game, Genki, I keep saying his name wrong, Finn, his mother, Rio, he's still, they talk about his father, Jefferson, who, spoiler alert, did pass away in this universe, the Gamerverse for Spider-Man. So, you really, between all that, the music, the different themes you bring in, there is social awareness in this game. So, sorry to the people that don't like that, whatever. This game really kind of puts everything in a nice package. I will say the pacing is a little off, depending on, to me, the pacing was a little off when you get to like the end of the game. The first 2/3 of the story I feel like are really solid. The last third is kind of like, hit or miss. You can kind of see where they're like, okay, we got to kind of, we're going to cut this down. We're not going to extend it so much. And if you want to look at the side missions, things like that, the side missions are pretty good. You get a sense of, the different characters, like you kind of interact with side characters like the feast, the clinic, the donation home that you are in with Peter Parker in the first game. And you do get a good amount of Peter in this game, where he gives the keys to Miles, but he doesn't overstay his bigger star welcome, if you want to say. But I think Miles is on his way to being just as big as Peter, if not big at this point in the modern era. And you're looking at, I played this game on PS5. The load times are tremendous. You start this game off, a blink of an eye. You go through, you get right to it. Fast travel is very fast. There's never a time where you feel like this game is slowing down. You can always be on the move. Just like anything with Spider-Man, you want to be swinging. Walking around Spider-Man is never really the fun part. But stuff that you can say is not fun about this game, I had experienced a few glitches where the game crashed one time. I was close to the end of the game and I hit an option and the game kind of had me spin in a circle for a little while. Excuse me, I had posted that on my Twitter page. I know my friend also experienced glitches, and online people have been turning into trash cans and light poles swinging around the city. So there are a few little issues in this game. I'm not sure how it was missed, but I mean, that's just video games. I wonder how, it seems like it's common enough where it would have been caught, but it's not like, game breaking. There is quick saves and auto saves, quick saves, manual saves. So you're never really too bad about getting back into your progression. I talked about sound earlier. With the PS5 especially, I do have the headphones, the Sony headphones 3D audio for PS5, and hearing the different sound effects, hearing the city streets beaming everywhere, I really felt a sense of immersion playing this game. It really kind of, once again, just brought me into that sense of the vibe with the music, the hip hop tracks. There's a lot of Kid Cudi on here, which I was pretty excited about. It really kind of just got me in there. You get to see about Miles and where he comes from, who he is, who his family is, seeing how, just showing the differences between who this Spider-Man is compared to what we have known for so long, for so many years. Overall though, trying to give this game like a score, overall I would say I would give the first Spider-Man like an 8 out of 10, because it is a traditional like open world game where you are collecting things, you are going this place to this place, you have your story beats. The one thing about open world games I am seeing now is that I play like Ghost of Tsushima this year. There's different things. There's Cyberpunk's about to come out, and the way that you go about, traveling the lands, traveling the maps, and how the game once you get you into the flow of things, and so it can be hit or miss. I feel like in Spider-Man, I was I was engaged in the story where I really liked it. And sometimes in open world games, there is so much intensity in the story where you want to go and you want to see what's happening next, and going to do like a side mission or going to collect some side thing, some item that kind of doesn't matter, but it might give you a little token here and there for your abilities. I get a little bit, a little off center where I'm like, okay, I want to see where this story is going. I feel like me doing this other stuff is taking away from the impact of the story and the importance. So I will say that it does have those same kind of open world tropes. If I was giving it a score, I would say probably another 8 out of 10. Depending on how you look at it. The game looks great. Like, graphics are, to me, 9.5 out of 10. The combat up there as well. But just overall, in like the traditional open world games, I will say it kind of leans down into like a bit of a lower score. But an 8 is still great. You go on the internet and somebody says 8, like, oh, it's not great, whatever. But I feel like Miles Morales really hit home for me. It really drove home why I like Miles as a comic book fan, seeing him in Spider-Verse, seeing him in these last couple games. So, we're setting up really for seeing some great stuff from Insomniac. I'm really excited to see what they can do in the future. This was me going off top of dome. Really, I kind of wrote down stuff, but talking about this game, I really enjoyed it. It's one of those things where I see a lot of people getting the platinum in this game. I got the platinum in the first Spider-Man. I'm thinking I might go back to this one again later. I'm kind of burnt out a little bit open worlds. Other stuff's coming out. Other stuff I want to play. So if you do that, it's really, it's fun to do that. Going and getting all the icons and stuff is okay. So I want to see where open world games go in the future with that, especially for Spider-Man, because we've been in New York City these 2 games, one longer, one shorter. So I'm curious how they transition into giving players, Spider-Man fans, more of the Spider-Man lore. And Spider-Man is New York, Manhattan, Harlem, all that stuff, but I really want to see where they can take these next games. I hope the next game comes out in a few years, gives them some time to really, churn out some good ideas, things like that. So for anybody that hasn't played Spider-Man, let me know what you think. Anybody that has played Spider-Man, I'd like to see what you think in the comments. Comment, like, subscribe to the page. This is 4 Eyes Malone. I appreciate y'all watching. Peace.